Well, how's everybody? We doing all right this morning? Excellent. If you don't know me, my name's Elliot. I'm the associate minister here at the Cove. I'm thrilled to be here with you today, whether you are with us in person in the room. It's great to see you, or whether you're joining us live online right now on Facebook or YouTube. Thank you so much for taking some time to spend with us today as we wrap up our series called In the Meantime. We've been taking a look at the life of Daniel and how it kind of parallels our life in a lot of ways. And when I was in college, I had the privilege to travel with a group called New Creation, which was our job was to go all over the country and raise money for the college. It was a traveling music group. And we got to go all kinds of places. It's actually how I met Ron Sieber. Anybody else glad that I met Ron Sieber? Man, come on, dude. Thank you. We're so glad that you and Shannon and the girls are here. We're thrilled, not just because of what he can do, obviously, musically, because of who they are and the kind of people that they are, just top-notch. We love them. And it's also, New Creation is where Abby fell in love with me, so ask her about that later. I'm going to be in trouble for saying that, but sometimes it's worth it, you know? Our director for New Creation, her name is Ruth Reyes, and I say is because she's still there. And if you'll forgive me for just 1 second, I need to do something. Ruth, if you're watching this, I just want you to know that I love you, and I want to thank you so much for pouring into students like me for all of these years, and just thank you for who you are and everything that you do. Okay, now that we're done here. One time we were on tour, we were in Virginia, and it was nasty outside. We got snowed in, actually. At the church, the van broke down. Everything was a mess. And so we'd finished this program the night. Everything was done. And we'd been begging Dr. Reyes to play. And if you've ever met her, you know why. So we said, please just play something. At the end, nobody can leave anyway. And she said, fine, I'll do it. So I'll never forget this moment. She walked up, and it's just a regular up against the wall, upright piano. And nobody's going to sing with her. There's no mood lighting. Nobody's doing anything, just her. She sits down, and she begins to play His Eye is on the Sparrow. You know the old hymn? And I know He watches me. She starts playing that, and I'll never forget it because by the time she was done, everybody in the room was bawling their eyes out. I'm not talking about little trickle tears. I'm talking about ugly cry, need a tissue kind of tears. And we're like, I need some of that in my life. So everybody wanted to be as close to Dr. Reyes as humanly possible in the hopes that just a little bit of that would rub off on us. You know what I'm saying? And one time we were sitting in class, and this kid said, Dr. Reyes, I just wish I could play like you. And she got this smirk on her face. And without missing a beat, she said, you can. All you got to do is practice 6 to 8 hours a day for the next 20 years. And then she just went on like she didn't say nothing. That's it. But that's what we want, isn't it? We want the highlight, but we don't want to do the work. We want the highlight, but we don't want to do the work. We want the high-paying job, but we don't want to take the unpaid internship working 40 hours a week for nothing but contacts in the field, right? We want to make the team. We want to be the star of the team, but we don't want to get up at 5:30 to run conditioning drills because that's hard. Nobody wants that. We want to be the best parents and grandparents we can be, but I ain't got time to talk to you right now. The game's on. Come back in 4 hours, and we can talk about whatever nonsense you want to talk about then. We want to be bilingual. We want to speak a foreign language, but who's got $700 to drop on Rosetta Stone? Plus, then you got to practice like all the time. We know it takes 10,000 hours to master something, so you got 10,000 hours to burn. I know I don't. We need that shortcut, don't we? We want the highlight. We don't want to do the work. That's true in our physical lives. It's true in our spiritual lives as well, isn't it? We want that deep relationship with God. We want those stories to tell. And it's funny, you ever been jealous of somebody's testimony before? Somebody's telling a story about how God is working and moving in their life, and you're like, man, I just wish I had a story like that. That would be incredible if I could tell about all these things that God's doing in my life. And sure, I don't even know where my Bible is. It's probably still packed up from when we moved, like, I don't know, 10 years ago. But, it'd be cool if I had these stories. And sometimes, I'll pull out the Bible app, and I'll check that verse of the day. I might even share it on social because I noticed that when I share Bible verses on social, I get more likes. So it's a win-win. People know that I take my faith seriously, and also I get that credibility that I'm looking for from social media. It's interesting, isn't it? We want this relationship with God. We want this deep relationship, but we don't want to put the work in. And the thing about a relationship with God is it's very much like a relationship with a person, in that, both of them take a lot of work, don't they? Showing up every single day, over and over and over again, and time and energy and effort into that relationship. And I can say very easily that marrying Abby was one of the greatest decisions of my life. Somebody say amen. That's right. Yeah, it's true. But those of you who are married know that most days in your marriage or in any relationship, they don't go in the photo album, do they? Not most of them. Most days aren't the days that you're writing about in the journal. Most days you get up, you love each other the very best that you can, and then you go back to bed and you do it again tomorrow, right? And that's how it works. And you build a relationship one day, one moment, one memory at a time. And the same is true in your relationship with God. But we want to fast forward to the miracle. We don't want to build into these little moments, but I came here today to tell you it's the little moments that lead to the miracle. It's the little moments that lead to that miracle in your life. It's true in your life. It's true in mine. It was true in Daniel's. Now, if you only know one story about Daniel, it's probably the one we're going to talk about today. You probably know the story of Daniel in the lion's den, because if you came to Sunday school 5 times as a child, 3 times you talked about Daniel in the lion's den, didn't you? Yeah, it's an incredible story. It's great. And that's where we're going to camp out today. But if you've been hanging out with us over the last month, you know that Daniel's story started long before then, don't you? Because we said that he was deported from Israel, taken captive to Babylon when he was about 20 years old. And his normal was ripped from his life. Everything was gone, and he was going to have to decide if he was going to trust God in the trial or not. And when he got there, he was placed in re-education camp that was going to last for 3 years. And he was told by Jeremiah the prophet, he's going to be there for 70, by the way. And in the middle of that re-education camp, he had to decide. He had a big problem because they were trying to force feed them food that had been sacrificed to idols. So he had to decide if he was going to allow his circumstances to dictate his choices or if he was going to flip the script. And then he saw his friends tossed into the fiery furnace because they said, I don't care what crisis comes my way, I'm going to live my convictions anyway. And last week we talked about this decade of Daniel's life where there was king after king after king after king and all this political unrest and turmoil and chaos in his life. But Daniel said, chaos didn't cancel my calling. I know who I am. I know who I've been called to be. And all of this stuff, all these are highlight moments. But did you know that when Daniel was tossed to the lion's den, he'd have been about 80 years old? So some quick math here. If he got there when he was 20, and now he's 80, that means he'd been there about 60 years. And sure, there's been some highlights along the way, but my man is still a slave. And you want to tell me that he hasn't been praying every day for God to let him out on early parole or something like that? You can't convince me of that. He's been praying all the time. God, let us go. Can we go home? 3 times a day, actually, as we'll see in a little bit. He's been doing this for a long time, but he's still a slave. He's been there for 60 years, and I just wanted to point out to you that Daniel in the lion's den happens in Daniel chapter 6, which means there's only 5 chapters from the time Daniel's 20 to the time he's 80, and one of them he ain't even in. What's that tell you about Daniel's life? There were a lot of days, many days, where he simply got up, followed God the very best he could, and went to bed again. It was just get up, be faithful, go to bed. Get up, be faithful, go to bed. All the while, he's waiting on a miracle. And one day, everything changes. This is where we pick it up in Daniel chapter 6, beginning in verse 1. It says this: It pleased Darius to appoint 120 satraps to rule throughout the kingdom, with 3 administrators over them, one of whom was Daniel. The satraps were made accountable to them so that the king might not suffer loss. Now, Daniel so distinguished himself among the administrators and the satraps by his exceptional qualities that the king planned to set him over the whole kingdom. Now, we just said he's been there for 60 years. If anybody can kick it into neutral and coast to the finish, it's Daniel, don't you think? You think he's earned it? But the thing about Daniel is he wasn't fading into the background. He was rising to the occasion, even still. And he was still head and shoulders better than everybody else. And when that happens, you ever notice that when you outshine people, they get mad? That's what happened to Daniel too. Here's what happened. It says at this, the administrators and satraps tried to find grounds for charges against Daniel in his conduct of government affairs, but they were unable to do so. They could find no corruption in him because he was trustworthy and neither corrupt nor negligent. Finally, these men said, we'll never find any basis for charges against this man Daniel unless it has something to do with the law of his God. Oh, that would be said of me. Oh, that would be said of you, church. How incredible would that testimony be? Where people are looking for ways to bring us down. They say the only way that we're going to get something on them is if we make worshiping God illegal. That's what they were doing in Daniel's life. They said, we're going to have to get a little creative. And so they did. Finally, these men, so the administrators and satraps, they went as a group to King Darius and said, may King Darius live forever. The royal administrators, prefects, satraps, advisors, and governors, we've all agreed that the king should issue an edict and enforce the decree that anyone who prays to any god or human being during the next 30 days, except to you, your majesty, because you're amazing, shall be thrown into the lion's den. Now, your majesty, issue the decree and put it in writing so that it cannot be altered in accordance with the law of the Medes and the Persians, which cannot be repealed. So, King Darius put the decree in writing. Sounded pretty good. A little stroke of the ego there. Now, when Daniel heard that the decree had been published, he went home to his upstairs room where the windows opened toward Jerusalem. 3 times a day, he got down on his knees and prayed, giving thanks to his God. Watch this. Just as he had done before. What do you think about this? Because Daniel said, oh, praying's illegal now? Let me go home and pray about it real quick. This is what he did. Where does that come from? Where does that come from? You see, Daniel, when it came to this decision, there was no decision to make. Because Daniel made the decision to be faithful to God a long, long time ago, didn't he? He'd been living it his whole life. And so when the moment came and they said, well, you can't do this anymore, there was no decision to be made here for him. And I find myself giving this advice to people all the time. I say, make the decision before the moment arrives, and you won't even feel the pressure of the moment. Make the decision before the moment gets here. Because there's moments in your life, and you know when they're coming most of the time, don't you? When you're going to have to decide, am I going to be faithful to what God says, or am I just going to do what I want? Am I going to be faithful to do what God says, or am I just going to go along to get along? And when those moments come, if you haven't made the decision before the moment gets there, it's really difficult to make the right one, isn't it? I've been there. Sometimes I make the right decision, and honestly, sometimes I don't. And I'm sure that you've been there as well. But what I want you to see is that Daniel's decision to be faithful didn't happen in this moment. Daniel's faithfulness in this moment was merely an extension of the faithfulness that marked his entire life. But how many of you know that sometimes even faithfulness has consequences? You been there? That's what happened to Daniel. It says this. Then these men went as a group, and they found Daniel praying and asking God for help. So they went to the king and spoke to him about his royal decree. Did you not publish a decree that during the next 30 days, anyone who prays to any god or human being except you, your majesty, because you're amazing, be thrown into the lion's den? The king answered, yeah, the decree stands in accordance with the law of the Medes and Persians, which cannot be repealed. Then they said to the king, Daniel, he's one of those exiles from Judah. He pays no attention to you, your majesty, or to the decree you put in writing. He still prays 3 times a day. Can you believe this guy? When the king heard this, he was greatly distressed. He was determined to rescue Daniel and made every effort until sundown to save him. Then the men went as a group to King Darius and said, remember, your majesty, that according to the law of the Medes and Persians, no decree or edict that the king issues can be changed. So the king gave the order, and they brought Daniel and threw him into the lion's den. The king said to Daniel, may your God, whom you serve continually, rescue you. A stone was brought and placed over the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet ring and with the rings of his nobles, so that Daniel's situation might not be changed. Then the king returned to his palace and spent the night without eating and without any entertainment being brought to him, and he could not sleep. At the first light of dawn, the king got up and hurried to the lion's den. And when he came near the den, he called to Daniel in an anguished voice, Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God whom you serve continually been able to rescue you from the lions? Daniel answered, may the king live forever. My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouths of the lions. They have not hurt me, because I was found innocent in his sight, nor have I ever done any wrong before you, your majesty. And the king, he was overjoyed, and he gave orders to lift Daniel out of the den. And when Daniel was lifted from the den, no wound was found on him. Why? Why? Because he had trusted in his God. That's where we normally stop the story, isn't it? But I want to finish it for you today. You ready for this? At the king's command, the men who had falsely accused Daniel were brought and thrown into the lion's den, along with their wives and children. They weren't playing around. And before they reached the floor of the den, the lions overpowered them and crushed all their bones. Don't tell me the Bible's boring. You ain't read it, okay? Then King Darius wrote to all the nations and peoples of every language in the earth. Tell me if this sounds like a pagan king to you. May you prosper greatly. I issue a decree that in every part of my kingdom, people must fear and reverence the God of Daniel. Why? For he is the living God, and he endures forever. His kingdom will not be destroyed. His dominion will never end. He rescues and he saves. He performs signs and wonders in the heavens and on the earth. He has rescued Daniel from the power of the lions. This is the moment that we've been waiting for, isn't it? This is the moment where God shows up in a miraculous way and shuts the mouths of lions and shows his power to the whole earth. This is the moment that we want in our lives, is it not? But I came here today to tell you that this miracle doesn't happen without the multitude of moments that preceded it. You see it? This miracle never happens without the multitude of moments that preceded it. What I need you to see this morning is Daniel's miracle moment was a lifetime of faithfulness coming to fruition. You see it? Daniel's miracle moment was a lifetime of faithfulness coming to fruition. Daniel said, I know who I am. And I don't know if God's going to save me or not. But I'm going to give him glory, come what may. So let me ask you, you want God to do miracles in your life? What miracle are you praying for right now? I hope you are praying for one, because we serve a God who still does miracles. You believe that? I do. So what miracle are you praying for right now? It's probably not shut the mouths of hungry lions, although if the occasion calls for it, I wouldn't say no, you know? It probably sounds a lot more like this. God, can you please put my family back together? But, I know it seems like it's shattered beyond fixing, but nothing's impossible with you. Maybe you prayed that prayer. Maybe you prayed the prayer, God, please let us have kids. We've been trying for a decade now, and for whatever reason, we can't. Hey, God, you know the desire of our hearts, and you have the ability to do anything. So please bless us in this way. Maybe it sounds like, God, I lost my job in the middle of a pandemic, and it doesn't seem like my field's coming back. And I'm getting a little bit stressed and a little bit worried about putting food on the table, and I need you to show up right now in this moment. I don't know what miracle you're praying for, but I do know this. It's the little moments that lead to the miracles. It's the little moments that lead to the miracles. It's those little moments of faithfulness when you think nobody's looking, and the little things you don't think even matter. It's those little moments, those decisions to be faithful to what God has called you to be, that shape your heart, that shape your faith, that shape your life, that shape your future. How many of you know that's true? So let me ask you, you going to be faithful to what God's asked you to do? You're going to be faithful? Not one time, not a couple times. Every day, day in, day out. If we learn nothing else from Daniel, it's that it's a lifetime of faithfulness, isn't it? It's not a one-time decision. We want you to make the decision, but then you got to live it day in and day out. What about when it gets hard? Because it's been a hard year, hasn't it? For everybody, for some more than others, for sure, but it's been a hard year for everybody. I want you to see this, though. You know that God could have kept Daniel from getting thrown into the lion's den if he wanted to, right? But what I want you to see is that God didn't save Daniel from being thrown to the lions. Instead, God showed up and showed himself through it, didn't he? And following Jesus, being faithful to Jesus, doesn't exempt you from the hard times in life. What it does is promise that you won't go through those hard times by yourself. Because even when I feel alone, I'm not. Last week we said that Jesus left us with a job to do, didn't we? We said chaos didn't cancel your calling. What we want you to do is to believe, to belong, and to become all that God has intended for you to be. And we said Jesus left us with a job to do, church. In Matthew 28:19, when he said, hey, I need you to go into all the world and make disciples of everybody. It's a big job. And there's a lot of days when you're doing that job, it feels like we're not getting anywhere. But I want you to see that Jesus left us with a job to do, but that job came with a promise. How many of you know that right after he said, go into all the world and make disciples of everybody, then he said, and I'll be with you always, to the very end of the age. Now, some of us want to claim the promise without doing the work, and that's not exactly how that works, okay? But making disciples is hard. Spreading the gospel is a big job. And there's going to be days when you're doing that, when it feels like you're just banging your head against the wall over and over. And it's uncomfortable, and I don't want to do it. And I feel like I'm the only one doing it. And Jesus said, no. I'm going to be with you every step of the way. And maybe you don't know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about spreading the gospel. So just really quickly, I want to say this to you. The gospel in a nutshell is this. There are things in your life that you do that you know you shouldn't do. The Bible calls those things sin. And it's sin that broke our relationship with God in the first place. But that's also why Jesus came in the first place. He came and he lived a perfect life, and he gave that life for you and for me on the cross so that we could find forgiveness and come back into a right relationship with God. And he rose from the dead on the third day and conquered sin, death, Satan, and hell, and all of that forever. That's the gospel. And that's the job that Jesus has given to us, to go into the world and spread that message to every person on the face of the planet. It's a big job, I understand. And Jesus has said, if you'll do this, I'll be with you always, to the very end of the age. And we talked about a lot of things throughout this series. We've said that we're going to trust God no matter what trials come our way, because we know that God got into the middle of that trial before we ever got there and started working it for our good. We believe that. And we said that we're not going to let our circumstances dictate our choices, but we're going to make choices that shape our circumstances. And we said no matter the crisis that comes, we're going to allow Christ to shine through us in the middle of that crisis, because we know that no matter the chaos that's swirling around us in our lives right now, that chaos didn't cancel our calling. So when it gets hard and when it feels like it's just another day, we're going to remember this, the little moments that lead to the miracle. And the greatest miracle of all is still on the way, is it not? The day when the clouds part and when Jesus comes back. I'm looking forward to, anybody else looking forward to that day besides me? I'm looking forward to that day. But in the meantime, church, he's given us a job to do and a promise to go along with it. So if I could boil it all down to one question that I need to ask you, it's this: will you be faithful to what God has called you to? And I can't decide that for you. Neither can Tim, Brandon, Ron. Nobody can decide that for you. I don't know what you're going to do. But I can promise you this: if you'll show your faith, God will show his faithfulness, because my God has never failed. Not one time, and this is not the exception. So I don't know what you're going to do. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. I hope you'll join us. Let's pray. Father God, thank you so much for today. Thank you for this moment. Thank you that you called us to be here in this day, in this time, in this moment. God, thank you for the job that you've given us to do. Help us to do it faithfully. Thank you that you have never once abandoned us. You have never once failed. God, help us to love you with all that we have, day after day, moment by moment. We give you our heart. We give you our lives. We give you all of the praise, for you alone deserve it. And everybody said, amen.